Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror. I am your host, Kevin Powers, and I have a magical trio of people here today because we are talking about one of the most fun and energetic horror comedies out there, which is Tremors. It's a favorite of everyone here at Conversations in Horror, and to help us go through this movie, I have is Thomas Tenorello, Sarah Panazzo, and Dave Watkins. They've all graciously volunteered their time to talk about this amazing cult classic movie, which has spawned so many sequels and TV shows that it will never, ever end. So, thank you everyone for joining us on Conversations in Horror.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin.
Okay.
By our powers combined, we are the main three.
So I'm gonna like start this off a little bit, maybe a little bit different than normal, maybe not, because this is such a huge cult film and it spawned so many sequels and it's a beloved film to a lot of people. I want to get your first impression of when you first saw this film, and then kind of tell us whether or not you saw it when it originally came out or if you saw it later on.
So this movie came out in 1990, by the way. So,
1990.
yeah.
Dave, start us off. When did you watch the film? What was your first impression of this movie?
I saw it for the first time on TV with commercials. But I think that I saw like a commercial for it. It was like before, I knew it was coming on, and I saw the commercial. It was kind of advertising it. So some of the movie before I saw it because of that. But I thought it was a lot of fun. When I saw it the first time, and I thought it was. I think what really stuck out to me was the actors, like the characters, like especially Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward's characters, and the way that they played off of each other. That really made it stand out from a lot of other movies, other than the giant worms look, for it being like no CGI, they look really awesome in general. They use them very sparsely too. So,
all right, what about you, Thomas?
Well, let's see. I think like Dave, I think I probably watched it on TV first, but I've been racking my brain trying to figure out if I saw it as a rental or if I saw the what I would call the pardon my French version on TNT, which I would otherwise known as the Tremors Network Television, or TBS, aka the Tremors Broadcasting Station, because they ran both those services by Ted Turner, ran this show all the time. So I think the first movie especially became sort of like like a middle school friend that you just see every now and then. Oh, look, there's Tremors. Hey, Tremors, what's up? What are you doing now? So I think that I do remember, like, before it became so ubiquitous on TV, I know I saw not necessarily the trailer, although that was all over the place too. But I remember my parents watching Entertainment Tonight, with John Tesh, for you younglings out there. They were doing like a behind the scenes thing on Tremors. And I remember like they were doing like showing how the special effects were done. And I thought that was incredible because they were showing, I think, when one of the graboids is chasing somebody and you could see the slats for their walkway going up in a wave. And I thought that was super cool. So I guess that's what lured me in to this adventure, which could very well be pretty much called Nope on the Ground. Or as someone up online put it, they called it Redneck Jaws. Because that is movie.
Originally it was titled in script form. It was Land Sharks. Did the Saturday Night Live character? They decided not to go with that route because of that.
Yeah, and then they went through 2 more iterations. There was Beneath Perfection, which I think is genius, and then they skipped Dead Silence as well, which then became an awful puppet movie.
Yes, that's right. That is right.
Yeah. I think Tremors is definitely the better title of any of those.
Absolutely.
It's nice because it's just one word and it's just there, where was it Beneath Perfection? Is that what you said?
Yeah, Beneath Perfection.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of cool, but I think just that one word of Tremors, it just kind of stands out to me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was describing to my sister what I was doing this weekend, and she was like, "You have tremors I need to worry about?" And I was like, no, like the movie. So it can be confusing.
It can be, but you know what's funny? Like they were so sorry. They were so like trying to avoid being synonymous with a comedy sketch, and this movie is super funny. At the same time, though, they're like, "Oh, we can't call it Land Shark because of the comedy sketch on Saturday Night Live that now nobody remembers." There are now, in fact, 2 movies called Land Shark out there. One's a Chinese movie, and one is I think, from the Asylum back in 2017.
All right, Panazzo, how about you?
I definitely watched it on TV at some point. Don't remember when. I know I was young. Sorry, Kevin. I know I'm showing my age. But no, I remember seeing it as like one of those like B-list monster movies after my dad was showing me like The Blob and like classics like that. And I watched this and I'm like I said, like
the
7
McQueen
years old.
version, I assume, right?
Or something. I can't even remember anymore, but it was like any monster movie, we'd watch it. And we watched this and I'm like, what the hell are Reba and Kevin Bacon doing? Did not get it at all at that age. Little bit later, I thought it was fun because I was a kid. It's a blast of a film, but then I didn't appreciate it until I was older. And then recently watching it this week, I was like, Dune 2 still fresh in my mind, and all I can do is think how they need to do like the sandwalk the entire movie, and they would have been fine.
All right, so I must be really fucking old. All right, so I saw this movie at the theater when I was a kid, because not only was I a huge fan of Kevin Bacon, because I was probably seen Footloose 5 billion times as a kid. I knew who Fred Ward was from fucking Remo Williams. So I knew who the 2 stars were when I was a kid. And I'm a monster kid. I was always a monster kid, and I always loved monster movies. And I had to go see this the weekend it came out. So my dad obviously took me to go see this the weekend it came out. And then, of course, when it came on video, I think we rented it 3-4 times before I decided to record it, and then I watched it a billion times after that. So I'm a little old school when it comes to Tremors. Just as a reason why I've seen all of the television show and all of the movies, and I'm a huge fan of the franchise, no matter how many times it went crazy on me. So that's how I see it.
Well, going off of that, like, I think I knew Kevin Bacon more from Animal House at that point than I did Footloose the first time I watched it.
You know what? If Animal House is in the movie, I really, really I've seen it like maybe twice when I was a kid, and I don't remember anything about that movie. Anything. But Footloose, I used to think I was Kevin Bacon. I used to dance like that, and I'm like, dude, that dude has some magic. And growing up in the 80s / 80s, I did grow up in the 80s, everybody. And just a little bit in the 90s before graduating. So that's what my whole experience was. It wasn't Kevin Bacon from Friday the 13th. It wasn't Kevin Bacon from everything else. It was literally Footloose that just, and so of course I found his ass hilarious as shit in Tremors and thought the movie was absolutely brilliant.
I think this may have been my actual first experience with Mr. Bacon, now that I think about it. Because I had not seen, to be honest, I still haven't seen Footloose. I mean, I don't even think I knew it existed when I was a kid, because it just wasn't one of my jam. So yeah, I think this might have been the first time.
I feel like I can't remember, like, thinking about it, I can't remember what I knew Kevin Bacon from exactly, but it wasn't Footloose, but I did know who he was when I saw the movie. I'm not sure what from. I know he's got a cameo in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and I knew he was from that, but there was like there's like some kind of romantic comedy, like He Said or She Said or some shit.
Yeah,
I don't know.
She said.
Yeah.
Is that what it's called? Like, yeah, he's in that. But I knew him for something that was not like that. I don't know, but it wasn't Footloose. Sean Penn was in that with some curly ass looking hair too, man. Chris Penn, right?
One back.
Yeah.
I knew it just dawned on me the films that really impressed me with Kevin Bacon. Just getting off a little side there. I forgot that the same year he did freaking Flatliners, which I watched.
Yeah, that was probably it. That was probably
I
it.
saw that a billion times too. And then he also did one of my all-time favorite movies, which is Whitewater Summer, a few years earlier. I don't know who's seen that other than me. I don't think many people have seen that movie. Absolutely.
It's on my radar, but I'm waiting for like a better release of it. I think it's just got a DVD release, but once I see like a Blu-ray or 4K, I'm getting it.
Same here. It was, a lot of his early movies just, unfortunately, they didn't do much for him. Tremors didn't do much for him either, to be honest with you. It became a cult film after it hit video, and everyone fucking realized what a great movie it was. And so,
I think his next couple big ones were like A Few Good Men and Apollo 13, where he wasn't even like major star of it.
Apparently Apollo 13, though, that's why he didn't do Tremors 2, do that, which was probably a better call in hindsight.
What are you talking about? He was trying to get an official sequel.
Tremors 2, it may have been a bigger movie.
Tremors 2?
Yeah, but apparently, it would have been. I think it would have been in the theater. It would have been a theatrical release if they had gotten Kevin and Reba back in it.
Yeah, but apparently, like for years, Kevin Bacon had disowned this movie.
Oh yeah, he absolutely hated it
until
until very recently, where I think he sat down. There's an article that I read where he sat down and basically said that I all these years I kept disowning this movie, but like it's because I was going through like a real depression when I was when I got the part. I didn't think I was gonna salvage my career. I cried to my wife like, I'm doing a movie about worms in the ground. What am I doing with my life? And he's just about to have his first child, and so he's like, I blamed all of that stuff on Tremors, and that wasn't fair.
Yeah, because I think he said, like, the Footloose money was running out, and actually the last day of filming was the day his son was born.
Yeah, that's about right. And so, and I can sympathize that kind of pain and stress, but like, he eventually just came around and said, actually, I had a lot of fun making this movie. In fact, I've been chasing that same set high for years now, just to make it the same kind of camaraderie they had while they were making Tremors. In fact, I think he said it's the only part that he's ever played that he really wants to do again.
Well, he did say that, and he tried to with Sci-Fi when they were going to remake it in 2018.
Yeah, they shot a pilot episode with him. They just didn't pick it up. So nobody's it. I want to see it. Yeah. It's too bad they can't just use the pilot and add another half an hour to it and make it like a straight to streaming thing,
Right? I'm sure somebody would pick it up if they did like a Tremors mini movie.
Yeah. I mean, people would watch it,
Oh yeah.
So, I'd watch it. They probably wrote it off as like a tax thing, more than likely.
Like most pilots, you just write them off as a tax write-off.
Yeah. So you probably can't legally use the footage anymore once you do that. It's gonna burn it, I guess, or whatever.
A lot of people forget. Like, you're right, it didn't do much for Mr. Bacon's career because it didn't really do much for anybody's career at first. This movie was a terrible disappointment at the box office.
I mean, it did great for Reba's film career. It was her first movie, and she went on to do how many more?
But she had that show, though. Her show was. But I mean, looking at the box office numbers, though, it didn't bomb. They had a budget of between 6.4 and 10 million, and it made it 16.7 million. Which if you looked at that now, it would be a different scenario. But it didn't bomb, but it made money.
Yeah, I mean, and I know like Ebert is like a huge film critic. I grew up watching him in Chicago all the time, and he's so hard to please. But he gave the movie a 3.5 out of 4 and said he was embarrassed how much he enjoyed it. Aww. Because it's like the affectionate throwback to the 50s creature features.
Yeah, but you can't say that to audiences. Audience didn't get that in the early. No. There's tons of monster movies that just didn't do well at all back in the early 90s. Well, 90s were pretty bad for horror films in general.
But that's what I think. I think it's a really weird time too, because even like movies like this, and when I've been researching that Night of the Creeps, it's like the movies didn't do that good in the theater, but they did really good on television and in home video. And there was like a bunch of movies that came out during that 87, 90 something range where they just like put them, and they just became very popular because of that phenomenon happening at the time.
Horror was not at its apex that it is now.
Well, and if you think about it, like it was only released at like 1,500 theaters across the US, and that is nothing compared to today where like every town has a theater and everybody in it's going to have at least one or two people who go and see a horror movie.
Yeah. But also I think this might have been a hard movie to market a little bit.
Yeah.
Because the tone is a hard thing. Now, within the movie, the tone is perfect. I think they do walk that line between comedy and horror pretty good. I mean, they lean more into the comedy part, which is a good idea because it's a monster movie. It's kind of, there's not that many other monster movies in the modern day that don't take themselves quite as seriously as Tremors do. And that's part of the magic of this movie, aside from, the characters, the ensemble, and the way they work together and all that stuff. The humor, obviously.
I think with the humor, it's done in a way where we were talking about the land shark or whatever. It's not spoof. It doesn't go spoof. It stays within its within the movie, and it makes sense. It never gets too goofy.
Yeah, it's not as crazy as Eight-Legged Freaks. Like
no.
Which
is also. I mean, that's also fun. It's not.
Oh
like,
my gosh, it's a fun movie, and you can tell what it's like spoofing off of. It's like spoofing off of this, but it was taking itself seriously without being taken too seriously. They knew when to add their humor versus when they had their scary moments.
That's because humor was derived from the characters instead of them being jokes. The very first the first act of this film is actually pretty serious because you haven't seen the monster yet. So when people die, they're not sugarcoating this. They fucking disappear, and something in the ground is swallowing up an entire car with a couple in it and stuff like that.
I mean, that's pretty scary too. I mean, this is scary. I mean, yeah, I would think if some kids seeing it, it's geared towards a PG-13 rating, so they kind of made it maybe towards kids. But it could be. I mean, I don't know if people were ever traumatized by it, but it's still a fun thing. But I think maybe some people might be scared that something might be under the ground, which there were something under the ground.
Definitely some scary moments. I mean, like old Fred's head underneath his hat, them climbing up the tower and seeing who was it? Edgar Deems.
Yeah. And then the scene where the doctor and his wife are like killed. And that's the only scene that takes place at night. All the rest of it's during the day. But that's pretty crazy though. It swallows her car under, and then they come and find the car the next day, and it's like, okay, this is a car. I guess we're not going to check for a person.
Yeah, right. She's dead. It's okay.
Yeah. She's under the ground. She's surely suffocated by now.
I do love how when the car is going down, the headlights, you can see them pointing straight up in the air, and then slowly they turn off. Like, that's so crazy.
I guess they were supposed to have her climb out on the hood of the car, but something with the stunt for it wasn't working correctly, so they decided to keep her in the car and then just show the beam so they wouldn't have to make the stunt work.
Well, it actually works fine though.
It works great for what it is.
Yeah, that sounds like there's a lot of things in this movie that are like that, where like they had a budget and the budget had limitations, and the limitations say, okay, this is the kind of movie you're going to have now. Even down to like the design of the creature, like those snake-like tentacle things that come out of its mouth were created because they wanted to save money on showing this giant worm, because it was actually cheaper to have these little puppet worms come out sometimes than to actually have the giant tri-beaked thing come out of the ground all these times. So that's why they added that, and that's why they're slimy like that. Because if they were all dry, they looked like they were. They're like, I think the actual quote is they looked like they were covered in nail polish all the time.
Yeah,
it actually adds a lot to it too. I think those little tentacles, it adds a lot, and especially makes it so when you're watching it at first, it makes so they can investigate certain aspects before seeing the whole worm. Like And it's a cool scene where they come up in the back with the car, and part of it's on the car, and then Michael Gross's character looks under it, and he's kind of makes him it gives a lot to his character at that point in the film. But that character is really cool. His character and Reba's character are kind of the
survivalist.
Survivalist,
Oh my
doomsday
gosh, they're so
preppers.
Before there was a term for doomsday
Yeah,
preppers,
yeah.
it was these two.
Right, and they got all those guns on the wall, and it's like there's kind of secondary characters in this movie. He becomes a main character in some of the other movies, but they treat him pretty good in the way that they don't get killed, because I've seen in other movies where, say, the Doomsday Preppers or whatever, they're firing the guns off and then they get killed, and as a kind of a point to say guns don't solve a problem or whatever,
Well, and that was Michael Gross's main thing. So like he is the only character who's done all 7 movies.
Right.
6 of them as Bert and 1 as an ancestor, and then the TV show. But he is apparently super liberal, and he'd just gotten off of Family Ties right before he started this. But he said that he was proud Bert is a responsible gun owner and had never actually aimed a gun at a person. It is always in a safe direction or towards a monster.
Sure, yeah.
Oh yeah, he checks an unloaded gun, which like skipping ahead of ourselves there. The annoying little kid Melvin wants so bad to shoot a grab boy towards the end of the movie, so Bert grudgingly gives him this huge magnum pistol, and he's like, "Here, go ahead." So then they're all shooting at the dynamite. Oh, they're trying to get the dynamite thing to blow up so they can blow up a graboid, and he's shooting away. And he's like, "Wait a minute, this gun's not even loaded." And he's like, "Gotcha." And he's like, "It got you to be brave, didn't it, though?" And he takes the gun away from him, and we know that this gun is not loaded. He knows the gun is not loaded. But because he's a responsible gun owner, he opens it, looks at the chamber, nothing in there, put it away.
Speaking of Melvin, I tried for the longest time to figure out, because I even made a list. It said population 14. And I was like, okay, there's Melvin. Whose kid is he? And I found out today that apparently there were some cut scenes where they explained that Melvin's parents were currently in Vegas. And I'm like, great. So that would put population up to 16. So who doesn't technically live in the city? Are Val and Earl not technically population?
I would think so. They're hired hands. They're kind of They're sleeping in their truck. It shows in the very first scene they're waking up and they're in the truck, sleeping in the back of it.
Speaking of which, Kevin, you said you noticed stuff in the film. Did you notice that foreshadowing for the end of it?
What, with the truck?
At the beginning, where Val's like, "There's a stampede," and Earl is in the little cocoon and just like falls off the bed of the truck, and it's like that's the exact ending.
Yeah. I noticed it this time. I never noticed it until I just recently rewatched. Oh, that's interesting.
But that actor who plays the annoying kid he's changed his name. I guess he goes by a different name. It's billed as Bobby Jacoby, who was also in Night of the Demons too. That's what I recognized him from. He's also in that Meet the Applegates movie. But he goes by Robert Jane now, and apparently he's a Texas Hold'em famous player or something like that.
Yeah, well, he came back for that one that one sequel where they Back to Perfection.
Right, the third one. Yeah.
Got everyone to come back to be in it, which I thought was actually great. To get a lot of the original actors to come back and be in that movie. So
he was also B number 4 in the B movie.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Oh my God!
Characters. Somebody pointed something out to me that makes this movie special, which is that it's kind of, in a way, it's kind of like, Kevin, when we were talking about Lucio Fulci's Zombie, how both this movie and I think Fulci's Zombie share a similar view of humanity. Because if you think about this movie, a lot of other monster movies are really just kind of set up to show humans are the real monster. There's always like a human reason that the monsters are here. Like some developers, dumping toxic waste.
They seem to intentionally avoid that by not answering any questions about the graboids whatsoever.
And not only do they do that, Dave, all of these characters we've mentioned all of them, even the ones who die early, they're all good people.
Mm-hmm.
There's
It
not
literally
annoying.
is perfection.
Yeah. And Enrica,
Yeah, you've
They're
got
all
this small, tight-knit community who all take care of each other. All of them do what they can to help.
Yeah,
I
there's
mean,
not an a-hole in the bunch.
I mean, except for Melvin.
But
Well,
he's a kid, so they can get away with it.
He's not.
Yeah.
He's not really that bad. He's just a little annoying. You
Yeah.
know? He's kind of playing jokes a few times, and he learns.
Yeah,
you
he
know,
learns.
not to do that shit. You know.
That's a good observation that everyone in this is a rare movie where there's not a real villain in any of them.
Right. Yeah. I hadn't thought of that. I hadn't thought of that either. I didn't notice that.
Al's name perfection. See, it's these little layers that we find out when we rewatch the movies that make the movies a little bit more, a little bit better than we originally.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one thing that was just sticking out to me when I was watching it, and they actually talk about it in the movie too, when they're sitting, like Fred Ward and Kevin Bacon and the actor was her name, Finn Carter. They're sitting on the rock and they're trying to figure out what's going on, where it came from, where it possibly came from. But the question that's always kind of gotten to me is like, why now? What caused it suddenly? Worms to come out of, what's bringing it? I guess it really doesn't matter ultimately, but usually at least they'll say. But if they answer that question and there was like some, like Thomas was saying, some like villain of corporation or whatever that like or drilling in the ground and unleash the worms, and then you got a bad person, So
Yeah.
they avoided it by not answering it.
I think they probably could have gotten away with it if like an act of stupidity may have them. Like maybe some prospector was blowing up, dynamite looking for gold or something, maybe something like that. Probably you could have kept the whole kind of Pelagian view of humanity, but still had some kind of explanation for it. But because they don't do that, my theory is that the Graboids just ran out of their food supply wherever they are. Like whatever it is they normally eat that's not human.
They seem pretty friggin' hungry because they just keep eating,
Yeah, like they ran out of food and they came up to find food. I think that's all it is.
I believe that if they had given a reason for why the Graboids were there, it would have been just like every other 90s movie where they start to use everything in the sun for a reason for the movie to be happening. Whether it be ticks, with the what was that? Ticks had the drugs that got by, or among that every monster movie they had for some reason the filmmakers decided that they had to have a reason to have the monsters, whereas Tremors, there's nothing like these creatures on Earth anywhere, and they just show up and they're just hungry and they just happen to be in the valley where this small little town of perfection is.
Well,
they
so
do I think in the second one though they do kind of say they're prehistoric creatures.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, the guys who wrote it did come out and say like, well, it's going to be like one of four things. It's going to be like radioactive, it's from space, they were always there, or it's man-made. And I like the whole thing of that they've been there the whole time and they just decided to wake up, kind of like Godzilla and the whole like God of Monsters realm that we've got right now. It was just time. Yeah. So they just decided to wake up and they're in the middle of nowhere, and look, there's the perfect lunch.
Yeah, well, when we get to the ass blasters and everything else, the life cycle of the Graboids.
Well, I think what Sarah's kind of referring to, I think, as something that the filmmakers probably did have in mind was this is basically redneck Jaws. I mean, there's no explanation for why the shark decides to just start eating people. He just does.
Watching Walter Chang get eaten by like the Jaws version of a worm and getting thrown around like as if it's a shark is top comedy.
Oh, yes.
It's definitely a choice.
Oh yeah. Poor Walter Chang, or as I call him, Egg Shen, because he'll always
been big trouble. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a bit Victor Wong playing that character. It's he's not in it that much. He's probably in half the movie before he gets eaten by the.
He gets to name. He gets to name the Graboid.
He does, and he has most of the town. I mean,
well, keep in mind that he was in like most of the great 80s movies out.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the great part of the cast is all of them, like we were talking earlier, like the cast is just this giant family of a city, but each one of them is their own character actor, basically. And you learn everything about these people from the first few minutes of just meeting them on screen. Because they've just got these personalities already built in. You can see the tiny bits of history with each of their own individual homes and stuff like that. So it's not hard to place them in this town.
I think also one of the town members is played by Charlotte Stewart, who's in a lot of David Lynch's stuff like Twin Peaks.
Mm-hmm.
She plays like Betty Briggs or Briggs like in the show, which I'm a big fan of. But
You and me both. Yeah, I noticed that when I rewatched it. I was like, oh,
she's an Eraserhead too. But
Mm-hmm.
Is she the mom of Jurassic Park girl in this movie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's Nancy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jurassic Park girl. That's funny. She's in it too. What is
Yeah.
that actress's name? Is it Ariana Richards? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, she's pretty good though. Really, and like all the stuff she did when she was a kid is too bad they didn't bring her back in the new Jurassic Park movies. You think they could have figured something out with that? You know?
yeah, she was. Just follow her character instead of the characters they created.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That's okay. We're gonna get another batch of
Apparently-
Jurassic Park movies. Maybe they'll bring her back for the new ones. Oh God.
Just let him.
I don't
just
know.
let him go. Just let him go.
We
I,
wouldn't.
I think they'll make some more money off of it if they do another one. Yeah.
They'll make money. It won't be good.
Probably not. Probably.
I will
Kids
tell
will like
everyone
it though.
now- I will tell everyone now out there who's listening, we probably will not be doing any episodes on Jurassic Park or no Jurassic World at all.
Fuck it, I'm out. Fuck it.
Sorry, if I talked about those movies, you would hear nothing but angry Kevin come out.
The first one was really good though. But you didn't like it?
Hated Jurassic World. I thought Jurassic
All
World.
of them are. The best part we got out of that was running Jimmy Buffett with double margaritas. That is the only good part of that movie.
Talking about Jurassic World. I'm talking about Jurassic Park.
The
Oh,
first
like the
Jurassic
original.
Park,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Jurassic World movies. All three of those are horrible.
Yeah. No, I'm not. I agree with that. That's
My
fine.
wife actually loves those movies, and she loves Tremors. She wished she had been on this show because she actually has seen that horror movie. She considered the horror movie because she thought she considers it a comedy. So, which is a good point to ask. There are people out there who just consider this movie a comedy, and my wife is one of those. She doesn't really like these type of movies, but like the rest of us, she grew up watching it when she was young, and she just took to it. So.
I mean, I gotta say, Kevin, I kind of sort of agree with your wife on this one. I mean, this Blu-ray, I put it in the comedy section just because this movie makes me laugh quite a bit. It also taught me how the right way to play rock, paper, scissors because, Val and Earl always solve anything in this movie with a game of rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure it's at the end of this movie. He basically, Earl wants to go and basically put himself in the dangerous situation and save Val. And so he says, he loses, but he says, nope, rock rips through paper. Yeah, actually, rock kind of does rip through paper. Rock should win against paper.
Oh my God. That being said, I would like us all to tell people, there's a lot of people who haven't seen this movie. I hate to say it's a product of its time, and even though there have been 6 sequels and a TV show, it still was relegated to a sci-fi channel type of mentality with a lot of audiences. Now, I'm hoping that our conversation will have livened it up for a lot of people out there. So I would like to ask each of you, what would you tell people who have never seen this film why they should watch this film?
Well, I think you might get 2 more views on Tremors if they listen to this thing.
Okay, I'll go first on this one because I made the question. The thing about Tremors is I think it is an easy 90s gateway film for people who don't like horror and need something a little light. and is not too scary, but still has a little bit of suspense. I think the first act does a really good job setting up the whole premise of the film, in which it's got some suspenseful moments, but it's nothing gory. And then by the time you reach the second act, it becomes a full-on comedy routine, but still has that monster aspect to it. It's almost all in the daylight. It's a rare horror film that's almost all in the daylight. So those people who coming in who are not sure can watch this film and be entertained and be engaged in a film that isn't designed specifically for jump scares. This is not that type of film. When I don't even know, are there any jump scares in this movie at all? That I think about it, I don't remember.
A little bit, like I said, with what's his name's head underneath his hat is a little bit of a jump scare. I mean, sometimes when the worms just come out of nowhere and they burst through the floor of
they eat
store.
Shang, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%, Kevin. It starts off suspenseful and it's quite a comedy by the end, but it's like the same as I compare it to Tucker and Dale versus Evil. You've got this great comedy movie with some horror in the background. It's built around horror elements, but it's a great comedy movie. It's a great intro to monster films. It's got great effects because everything is real. It's not CGI at all. They literally built everything. Everything's a puppet. So everything was done. They built the whole town. I mean, it's fantastic to think that they were able to pull this off on a somewhat shoestring budget.
Yeah, limited location, probably, limited location. Monster doesn't show up till the second act, not second half, second act.
Yeah. They actually decreased the amount of graboids because it was going to be 6, and they chopped it down to 4 to save money.
Well, you also mentioned another gateway horror film before I forget. Tucker and Dale versus Evil is another great gateway horror film, except for most of that takes place at night. So you might get a little bit of more
I don't know. There's a good chunk of it that takes place during the day. Like when he's cutting up the trees and there's the bees and the guys running through the woods getting impaled by trees. I mean,
Tucker and Dale is really gory too.
Yeah,
but
I was thinking that it kind of does seem like, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I've only saw it one time when it first came out, but it does seem like it may have had some raunchy type of humor in it, where it might go in a different type of direction.
It's
definitely
more self-aware. It's self-aware.
It is very self-aware. It explains a ton of tropes, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where he's running with the chainsaw. I mean,
and my wife, I had her watch that for the first time because she's a huge Alan Tudyk fan. She had never seen it, and she doesn't, like I said, she doesn't watch horror. I think she missed out. She missed out on every one of the horror tropes, every one of them, because she doesn't watch horror films. But she was laughing her ass off because she's an Alan Tudyk fan. Nothing else in that movie got her except for Alan Tudyk, and she was laughing her ass off the entire time. So. All right. What about the rest of you? What are your takeaways, or what do you have to say for someone who may be watching this for the first time or reevaluating it after years of having never seen it? Who wants to?
I would say that, like I said, I think the main appeal of this movie is how these people in a small town come together and work together, and they're all so enjoyable, endearing. And their dialogue is so funny. There's so many quotable lines in this movie. Also, they deliberately chopped it down from a hard R.
Yeah.
And just even if you watch this with the uncut version, it still seems dubbed because they deliberately went over and censored it, creating marvelous dialogue gems like, "Wow, we got that mother humper. That's good, Bert. Now be advised, there are 2 more mother humpers. Repeat, 2 more mother humpers in the area."
Is there actually a version of it that has the cuss words in it?
No.
I don't think so.
I thought you were implying that there was one. I was like, I wasn't aware of it.
It was like that when I saw it in the movies. Actually, when I watched it in the movies, I remember that. I was like, oh, that's weird. But, they did that sometimes.
That's the only reason why it got released as a PG-13.
Right.
Because they went back and they purposely did redub. I think they said there were a little over 20 or more fucks removed from the film.
Right.
And apparently they only had 2 Fs to give.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, I think it was just 1, and it was pretty early on.
Right.
Maybe this movie started the whole trope with the MPAA where you get one F-bomb per PG-13.
Oh wow.
It's so random too. It's just like one F-bomb, and it's like you got to place it in there, but
Got to place it perfectly.
Yeah, it makes people really think about the use of it sometimes, though, because the other so they're not using it as an adjective every other word, So it's like, but I mean, I kind of agree with Kevin on the reason why it works. It's just, I mean, I think it's a fun movie, and it's an easy type of movie to watch. It gets you in there right away when you see Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward interact, and and they're just kind of what's going on between them is just pretty funny. And you get into the characters, and then you start to see kind of a mystery going on in this town the cinematography looks great, like the fact that they made the whole town, and it's not, and they're able to destroy it during the movie too. But it all looks like fantastic, the art design and everything, and they're out in the middle of it. So the location's cool too, because it's like this middle of this desert, and it's I don't know.
Yeah, in like Lone Pine, California, right in the
it was 3 hours away from LA.
Yeah.
And they actually chose a bunch of the scenes that they did based on the rocks that were available in the area, so they could specifically do the pole vaulting scene.
Yeah, they it too. Even showed it to my son before, and he loved it. And that's the thing. It's like you show him something sometimes, and he won't watch it. He'll be like, he won't even look at the TV. He puts like a good movie on that I consider good. He's like, nope, I'm not looking at it. I put this on. He watched the whole thing. So it's.
How about you, Panazzo?
I already answered, Kevin. I told you I agreed with you.
Is that what you were going to say? Oh God!
Yes, I agree with you, Kevin. I'm done.
I didn't know that's all I had to say. I thought I had to say like a lot of stuff.
Great.
That's all I would have said too.
Like I said, I think it's a great creature feature. I love anybody who's listened to my other episodes knows that I love practical effects. I love special effects. The team who did this with what's their name? Tom Woodruff Jr. and Alec Guinness have done.
Guinness?
I keep thinking it's Alec Guinness, but it's Alec Gillis. But they are like the modern day monster movie maniacs. Like they've done so many different things besides Tremors. They've done like Alien 3, Aliens, Cocoon, Jaws 3D. They've done the Santa Claus 1 through 3. I mean, these guys have done their most recent thing was Prey, where they did the Predator in that one.
Yeah, that's really good.
And so their stuff is really impressive, especially for what they did for some of their earlier films, where like they started with the Terminator.
Well, I like this era of movies though, because before CGI. Because once you got CGI, just kind of sometimes it's overwhelming, and it's almost like they could do whatever they want to, but then you kind of stop believing that it's really happening after a while.
Well, and they have one of the biggest failure stories with CGI is they were the ones brought on to the remake of The Thing, or I guess the prequel of The Thing.
Right.
And all of their special effects were covered over with CGI because that is what the studio wanted.
Yeah, that was so terrible. I was watching. I finally got around to watching "No One Will Save You" with Caitlin Dever. Where it's a home invasion, but it's actually aliens. And I thought to myself the whole time while I was watching it, I'm like, man, this would have been so much better if they just made at least just the close up of the aliens practical.
Oh.
Because they made the aliens all CG, and I'm like, as soon as I know the difference, I know what a CGI face that's even vaguely human looks like, like, and they just weren't as scary because I knew they weren't real.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that was
and I think that the graboids look really pretty good in this, really, for what they are, and I think they're used in just the right amount of screen time. They're not. It's not overkill where you get tired of seeing them. And really, if they try, would you say they had to put 6 of them in there originally? And if they have that many, it would be way too many.
Yeah.
Because it's all Because it almost seems like maybe there should be one less. Because it takes them like a long time to kill them all.
Well, they got to kill one each way. Each time they kill one, they kill it a different way. So it's like,
right? Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying if they had one more than what they had, I think it would have been too many. By the time they got that last one,
Yeah.
It's like, it's like, oh, this one's smarter than the other ones, and then they had to trick him into going off the cliff.
Stampede!
Yeah, I mean, it's great that we only see one full one at one point, and that's because it crashed itself into the wall, and they had to unbury it and, see the ass end.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the fact that each of them even have their, like, kind of own personalities, and each one was so, like we said with the car, like, you start with the tiny little, tendrils, the tentacles, and then it all of a sudden reveals that no, that's just the inside. That's the inside of the alien mouth. Now we're coming to the outside of the alien mouth.
Yeah, I do remember when I first saw this film that I actually thought that when I saw the poster and then I saw the movie at the theater, I was like, is that it? It's just this little baby monster?
Yeah, little baby things.
Yeah. So, but I'm a kid back then. I'm like, oh, is that it? But, I love monster movies, so I kept watching the whole thing. Plus, I was stuck in the theater, so.
I'm just glad they went with the beaks and didn't go with the foreskin look that they originally designed, because that would have been a little much.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, any final words about Tremors for everyone?
Well, I've got several, but you were talking about how the graboids would have looked like a giant penis running through the dirt.
Is that what she was saying? I didn't pick that up.
Oh, she was talking about.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
You guys better be glad I put this as mature. This is a mature conversation.
Aren't all these mature conversations?
Sarah's already dropped a couple of F-bombs that put us in that category.
Kevin's going to replace them all. Kevin's going to replace them all with Mother Humper.
Mother Humper.
Yes.
He'll do her voice too.
I'll do two versions: the Mother Humper version and the regular R version.
Except it's going to be Kevin saying Mother Humper when I'm saying the F word. It's going to be great.
You should do that, Kevin. Actually, that'd be funny. It might expand your audience. But also, like, fun fact: apparently, the Sci-Fi Channel actually has the scientific name for the graboid. It is Siderius mexicanus, which literally translates to Mexican tree.
Yeah, I was going to say
it doesn't quite have the same, doesn't roll off the tongue as well as a graboid.
Graboid, yeah.
Graboid sounds almost like a hemorrhoid, though, it's.
But I also think that we've talked earlier about Burt Gummer, the heart and soul of this movie and all the other movies after. Who kind of is probably the best iteration of that in late 80s, early 90s trope of the gun nut. The gun nut who is usually the good guy. They almost never have him be the bad guy. You have versions of this, of course, in Police Academy with Tackleberry. You have another version of him, of course, as Bruce Dern's Rumsfeld in The Burbs, which is another movie I love very much.
Yeah, awesome.
And maybe another horror comedy that should be on this list.
And on the list.
I got a copy of it.
and also and finally Bert. And he gets to kind of annihilate one graboid as it bursts through his rec room. And I think that is the Schwarzenegger moment in this, where he has a good line. He says, I'll bet you picked the wrong rec room to mess with, something like that. And he sells that. But I think if Schwarzenegger had played it, it probably would have been a little better. So for everyone's listening pleasure, here is my Schwarzenegger alternator lines for this.
Oh, yeah. Do your Schwarzenegger alternate lines real quick.
Sure thing. Excuse me for a second while I clear my throat. Oh, boy. I haven't had a. Alrighty. So, Schwarzenegger alternator number 1. Picture a graboid crashing through the wall. He gets out his elephant gun, kills him. That's what happens when you bust into a rec room. You get wrecked.
Okay.
Number 2. Now, of course, this number 2 only works when you realize that it's Reba McEntire playing his wife, who's cuddling right next to him as this happens. Number 2. We are McIntyre and we aren't going to take it anymore.
Okay.
That's pretty terrible. Number 3. Looks like he picked the wrong turn. He took the wrong turn at Albuquerque. Dead wrong.
I don't know where you come up with these things.
That one's a Bugs Bunny reference because Bugs Bunny is always burrowing to the ground and he always makes a wrong turn at Albuquerque. Anyway, and finally, number 4. You poked your tentacles near my wife. Big mistake.
Oh my God! So that is Thomas's Arnold Schwarzenegger alternatives.
I mean, it would have been fun had Schwarzenegger done all that, but I think it works better without him. Yeah.
If they do a remake, a reboot, re-slash, whatever the hell they want to call them nowadays, yeah. I'm sure they can get Schwarzenegger to come out of semi-retirement to be Burt Gummer, and I think it'd be an amazing change up from what he's been doing now. So, all right. So, thank you all for joining us for this Tremors conversation. It was very fun for us to just say a lot of stuff on one of our favorite cult movies. Everyone out there listening, we hope that you've been entertained very thoroughly and that you got a lot out of this conversation. That being said, we hope that you seek out this movie if you've never seen it before, because we are all in accordance to saying that you will not be disappointed. Also, remember to check out some of our previous episodes. There are a lot of them out there now. And we just want you to enjoy the movies that we talk about here at Conversation in Horror. Thank you all and have a great day. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, produced by Kevin L. Powers, executive produced by Kelly A. Inoka, and originally filmed via Zoom technology. Conversations in Horror is hosted by Kevin L. Powers and co-hosted by various horror film lovers and filmmakers. To learn more about Mr. Powers, please make sure to check out his Patreon page and other social media platforms. Conversations in Horror is copyright 2024 Broken Lighthouse Pictures production.